You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, patrons. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. And today we are going to talk to and about. Let me say it a different way here. Our guests. Let me try this again from the beginning.
Don't do it yet.
Okay. Oh yes.
We need to make sure that we get like a good photograph of the three of you with the two of you.
Okay.
I don't want to.
This is something they'll never want to forget.
Absolutely. This is going to be a highlight
of their lives.
Not just Gettysburg College, but
Yeah, the whole life.
the whole life. Right.
Okay, ready to try it again.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, patrons. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. And today we've got a full house actually here. A lot of people. There's 4 other people besides Eric and myself. And one of them is the great Peter Carmichael. Hello, Pete.
I don't hear great.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Carmichael very often.
You don't hear that very often?
Not very often. That's why I was stunned and didn't say anything.
Well,
Can you say it again just so I could get used to it?
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the great Peter Carmichael.
I'm doing just fine. For that warm introduction.
Good. You sound a little hoarse.
I am a little hoarse. Sinus infection, I think. I don't know. My children, they live in a petri dish in high school, so whatever they get, they bring home.
Right.
So,
well, wonderful. Good for you. Today, you brought with you 3 of the Pohanka Fellowship students. Before we get to the students, why don't you explain to us what is the Pohanka Fellowship?
So the Pohanka Internship program is a truly distinctive program at Gettysburg College, and there really isn't anything that rivals it across the country. It is a program that honors Brian Pohanka, historian of note, historian who spent much of his career talking to the public in a wide range of ways, including reenacting. He tragically died of cancer. His family decided that they wanted to honor Brian, and they thought that it was a good idea, and we agreed that the Pohanka Internship Program, which places roughly 25 to 35 students at various historical sites, mostly National Park, almost entirely Civil War related, from Vicksburg, Mississippi, all the way up to Boston, Massachusetts. So
this is 20 or 30 a year?
Yep, that's right. 20,
that's
30
good.
a year. Oh, yeah. It's sizable. So we just 2 weeks ago finished our interviews for this coming class of Pohankas. We had almost 40 applicants. And then again, with our partners ranging between 25 to 30 partners, always adding more. And so we just added Chickamauga. We added Fort McHenry. We here in Adams County, we did the Land Conservancy as well. So there's a wide range of things for our students to do. They're almost entirely interpretive, which means they're out there giving talks, working behind information desk. They are the front lines of historians.
They have to deal with the public.
Man, yeah, and it's again, of all the things that I do in my career, there's nothing that comes even remotely close in terms of its importance than the Pohanka program. To know that these young kids are out there and they're doing that important work, the kind of work that too many adults say that young kids aren't interested in doing. We found just the opposite here. So they have some war stories, so to speak, of their experiences here, which I'm eager to hear about as well. But, I did their job when I was 19 back in the day, which was 1989 was my first summer at Appomattox Courthouse. And they're all giggling over there. How were you, 3, 4? You weren't even born.
You weren't even born yet.
Look at Eric. I was like, I wasn't even born, you old man.
89.
Oh my God, I was 4.
Oh, God. How old were you?
I was 11.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Maybe you were on one of my tours.
No.
Never made it to Appomattox.
Never gone down there yet. I have a friend down there, and he keeps saying, come down, I'll take you around. But that's a long drive.
Man, it's
I don't have
absolutely
the time.
worth it.
Yeah. I know.
I played a Union soldier, and I had to pretend that it was 1865, 5 days a week. 40 hours. It was tough, but it was a great learning experience.
Sure, I would imagine it is. What do you look for in an applicant that, when they apply, you said 40 apply, but only 20 to 30 go.
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
So what do you look for? What are the
right.
What do the winners get?
Yeah, right.
Or have?
Yeah. So depending on the position, but most of the positions are interpretive, right? So what we want is a young person who has enthusiasm above all else.
Okay.
We stress time and time again to our applicants that you don't have to be a Civil War specialist. You don't even have to be a history major. Those things we can teach you. We can train you. But what we can't do is we can't get a young kid who has enthusiasm. They got to have it. They got to want to be out there. And so we've been incredibly lucky and fortunate. I mean, these kids go out there and they do this and they come back and they're really fired up. And again, for my peers who are at other colleges, I suspect they have very few opportunities in which their classroom has students who have been out in the field practicing historians, who've had their own experiences, right? It just enriches our intellectual experience here at Gettysburg College.
And they get paid for it, too.
Absolutely. They get rich.
Well,
Look at them laugh.
Well, they don't have to worry, I guess, if they budget
Well,
their money,
unlike a world in which most internships barely pay if they do at all, I'll just give you the numbers. We pay $1,500. That's what the college pays, thanks to the Pohanka Foundation. They've been incredibly generous. In fact, they have just reached the $1 million mark.
Wow.
So we have that in our endowment, so we use that. And then the site, the national park, provides free housing. So you can get through the summer and you can pay your bills.
So, yeah.
And, I mean, I wish it was more. I'm hoping we'll get to that place.
Yeah, but the cost of living, raised, maybe they should get a little bit more.
Maybe. I mean, we would really seriously like to do that.
Is it for the whole summer?
Well, how many weeks is it?
It's a 10-week program.
Yeah,
10-week program
for 10 weeks. So again, it's a little bit on the short end, but we hope to adjust that in the near future. So yeah, it's a place where you can get real experience, get paid for it, get great housing, and the housing we should note is it's on the battlefield.
Yeah,
right. So you get to spend the summer living on the battlefield.
It's a tent though, right? It's not a house.
A pup tent.
Pup tent.
Yeah, pup tent. We won't give them an officer's tent. That goes for the professors.
That's for you guys. Yeah, absolutely. Now, and they have to be Gettysburg College students, right?
Absolutely have to be. And I'll say we've had people that have imitated our program. I think that's a good thing.
Sure.
University of Virginia, the Now Center, has done something very similar to what we've done. And I'm glad that other programs have done it. Like we need to make sure that next generation of historians, man, we got to give them that opportunity, got to get them out in the field, and we got to show them that the connection between the classroom and that field work, that it's vital. Yeah. And, all of us in here have been in classes, and you think, what in God's name am I here for? What am I learning? How am I going to use it? And I'd say for our Pohankas, they think, what I'm doing here at the college, what I'm learning at the college, I'm going to take that out in the field and I'm going to use it.
Well, let's start, because you were saying that you'd like to hear some of the stories that the kids have. I'm assuming that you haven't yet. So.
Well, I mean, I go down and visit them all. I didn't get to see Dan last summer. He was down in Petersburg. He was a little far south for me this year.
Okay.
I go down to Fredericksburg and I see them and we stay in touch.
Well, let's introduce everybody here. And we've got Dan in the back there he went down to Petersburg.
Yes, sir.
You originally hail from New York.
That is correct.
Okay, and you got out. You're free.
I am.
Good for you.
It's a great
Good
feeling.
for you. Stay out. And then we also have Erica, right? And you were at Fredericksburg this past summer. All three of you guys were past summer, or yeah, okay. And then Emma, who was also at Fredericksburg. Okay.
Did you notice there? Look how deferential they are. You have to actually say yes so they can hear you the mic, right? You're nodding your head doesn't quite register, so get closer to the mic.
That's a great point.
Yeah, closer to the mic.
And by the way, listen, I live over near the college, and I hear you guys at 3 a.m. walking down the street drunk and really loud, so don't, okay, not you? Okay. Well, I hear your friends, and I know how loud people your age can be, so please speak up, okay? So let's try this again. Erica, you were at Fredericksburg.
Yes, I was at Fredericksburg.
Okay, good. And Emma, you were also at Fredericksburg.
Yes, that's correct.
Dan, you made it out of New York.
I did, yes.
Okay, there you go. Okay, very good. All right, so well, let's talk about you guys first. What years are you?
I'm a sophomore.
Sophomore?
I'm a senior.
Senior?
I'm also a sophomore.
Sophomore, okay. And you obviously have an interest in history. Where does that come from for all of you? Go ahead. Dan, we'll start with you.
I've just always been pretty interested in history. It started with, I'd probably say, World War II military history, as I feel like that is the trend for most guys who get into history.
Sure.
But it opened up to Civil War history pretty early on as well, because my parents were thankfully very supportive of my interest and brought me to different spots around the country to look at battlefields. We never really made it too far south, but we went to Gettysburg a bunch of times.
Okay.
I'm trying to.
Did you get out to Sandy Hook, Fort Hancock, New Jersey?
No, never there.
Oh,
but,
you should go there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then
there's old World War. I think it's World War One. Is it World War One or World War Two?
Pre-World War One.
Huh?
You talking about the
Not the fort.
the concrete?
Yeah.
place?
Those are pre-World War One.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like-
pre-World War One, like artillery emplacements and things out in the dunes there. But be careful, because you could end up at the nude beach. So you got to be careful when you're roaming around there.
I'll be certain.
Yeah, it's frightening. Okay, and so. You decided to go to Gettysburg College. You wanted to go to Gettysburg College. I mean, that makes sense, right? You're into history. You've been here to Gettysburg, and why not go to Gettysburg College? You get down here, and then you get involved with the Civil War Institute, or what happens?
So I knew from the start that I wanted to major in history, and I was almost certain that I was going to minor in Civil War studies, which I ultimately ended up doing.
Okay.
So I definitely came to Gettysburg with the intention to study history with a scope on the Civil War specifically, and I assumed, like you had said, that this would be an amazing place to do it, and I was absolutely right.
Right. I mean, if you're going to study the Civil War, it's got to be here.
Oh, absolutely.
So what classes were transformative?
I would have to say probably definitely the race and slavery class, the 205 class I took with you last semester.
I'm pathetic, am I not? I mean, I'll set the guy up. What else is he going to say, man? That's sad. I feel sorry for myself.
Well,
That's pathetic.
it wasn't that
It was
bad.
a great class. You know what? No, it was great students.
Yeah.
We did a race and slavery class last spring, and we have some students online, some students in person, and man, they were really good. They went at it in a very serious and thoughtful way, and we looked at a range of really some tough topics. It was really tough.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like
it's
an
tough.
easy class.
It's tough.
Let me ask you this: when you were doing your race and slavery class, did the issue of Pete's scarf ever come up?
I don't remember, to be honest.
That's a good answer.
That's a good answer. That's a good
Okay.
answer.
All right. So you get to go down to Petersburg. So what was that like down there in Petersburg?
Well, the town itself, actually, it was definitely quiet, but quiet in, like, I want to say the best way possible, because there was never traffic. That was never an issue. The town itself was...
Which is bad, because then you don't have an excuse for being late to work.
No, but that's all right.
Right,
I
okay.
wanted to be there at work
All
on
right.
time.
Well, you're young yet.
And the town was great. The people there were great.
Yeah.
I definitely found a home there pretty quickly.
And you were on the park? You were living on the park, or where did they put you up?
Yes, sir. So I was right by the park, but our curatorial storage facility actually was right by the Fort Lee military base, and I was right outside of the gate there. So I'm not sure if I was technically on parkland or military land.
It was
but,
their building.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you were in the broom closet.
No, my house. I really
Oh, you
liked
were in a
my
house.
Yeah.
And you get to stay there for free.
Yes.
All utilities paid for.
Yes.
And you've got that stipend of $1,500.
Yes.
And you can make that last as long as you're there, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me
That's
just say real quickly that so Dan did a different kind of job. So he didn't do interpretation. So he should probably explain.
Okay, what'd you do?
What's meant by curatorial work?
So curatorial work, I would define it as more of the behind-the-scenes work for interpretation. So we take care of the artifacts. We analyze, like we accession them, and we'll deaccession them as necessary.
a session means what?
So to put into our collection, the collection of the Petersburg National Battlefield, and I got to restore certain historic artifacts. I got to hold some quite incredible historic artifacts.
What was your favorite one?
Probably Colonel Pleasant's pistol that he foreseeably held during the Battle of the Greater.
Okay, cool.
That's very cool.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and it's definitely more of like a behind the scenes thing, which I was a little hesitant at first, but that was the position I got, and as it turns out, I'm very glad I did, because I discovered a side of history that I never knew I could
Sure.
even be engaged
Yeah,
in.
you get to touch all this stuff.
Yeah.
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 I just want to add real quickly. So here's a good example of where a lot of young people decide not to do history because they think, well, I don't really want to teach. That's all you can do with a history degree.
Right.
Parents are also worried, like, hey, what can we do here with our kid? We're going to send them off to college and have a history degree. What kind of job? Well, the field of public history encompasses so much. That's just one element of it. Behind the scenes, working in curatorial, working with the collections. And so for the audience out there, I just encourage them to just do a little bit of research. And there's a site, the National Council for Public History. Anyone who goes to that, they'll be surprised to see that there is just an incredible range of things that one can do with a history degree. And as a profession, I would say that we're doing better, but we're still not as successful as we should be in communicating.
Explaining that.
Right, explaining that.
And you know, our mutual friend or your student, my friend or whatever, listener, Owen, we had this conversation the other day. Yeah. He said exactly that. He goes, well, I don't know, I don't want to be a teacher. I go, you can do a million things with a public history degree.
That's right. Absolutely right. Absolutely.
Some people just need to be smacked upside the head.
Professors cannot do that.
No, but I can.
Do that. But that's right.
Okay. So your overall experience down at Petersburg, would you do it again?
Oh, absolutely. I am doing it again.
You
actually.
are doing it again?
Yes, and I could not be happier.
When?
Again, this summer, I believe it's going to be a similar start date, probably beginning of June to beginning of August.
That's great.
Yes.
Good for you.
Good
Are you going back to Petersburg?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yes.
And can you request that, or do they request you, or how does that work?
So originally, actually, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with my Pohanka internship, but in the end, I just decided to reapply for Petersburg, simply because I had already. I don't want to say establishment, but I knew the people there. My boss was one of the nicest and smartest historians I've ever met. I couldn't be happier with my experience there. Mm-hmm. And I just, if I was going to go back, that's just where I would want to go back.
Great. Ladies, Erica, okay. You were at you were both at Fredericksburg. So were you there at the same time?
So I was an intern summer of 2020, and then I came back as a seasonal ranger this past summer.
Okay.
Could you, Erica, just very quickly, just so the public understands, what's the difference? What's it look like physically? I mean, in terms of your uniform, that's the key part.
So I wore like the volunteer uniform when I was an intern, and then when I got hired through like USA Jobs as a park guide, I got to wear like the park ranger uniform.
Right.
So her pay increased substantially, and she was on Pohanka. So she got to wear the Smokey the Bear hat.
Yes, that's awesome.
You see her on campus every once in a while. She's still proud. She walks around with it on.
Just the hat.
No.
Just the hat.
Just hat
It's just
and
the
regular
hat.
street clothes.
And regular street clothes. Yeah, look at me. I'm a park ranger.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. Eric's
doesn't
got
do
his forage cap on there,
well,
so I mean,
that's
you
the
know,
difference, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. All right. Well, no, but that's great. So you actually got a summer job
Yes.
with the Park Service. That's fantastic. And are you going to do it again next year?
Yes, I hope to come back as a seasonal next year. Yeah.
What was your big out of the 2 seasons that you were at Fredericksburg? What's the big memory that stands out if you have one? Like the coolest moment or something.
There's a lot. I'd say I really like working with like the kids in our junior ranger program, in that they fill out like a book and answer questions about the battle, and a lot of the kids get like really excited because they get a patch when they're done, and we swear them in as junior rangers, and it's a way for them to get really excited about learning history. So I have a lot of kids who would say like, oh, this made my day and everything, and that makes my day as well. So
Yeah, sure.
really enjoyed that.
That's good. So you like working with the children.
Yeah, I like that.
And when you're a seasonal ranger, you get to actually do interpretation, or are you just kind of assisting? Like what did you do when you were there?
Yeah, so this summer we got to do tours. So I worked at Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville mainly, and so I did like a tour usually like once a day on different topics. For Fredericksburg along the Sunken Road, and at Chancellorsville just around the Visitor Center. And we also got to do like shorter talks for people who maybe didn't want to do like the full tour, but we'd go out to the battle map painting and give them a shorter like overview of the battle and answer questions.
Okay. That sounds like it's fun.
Yes,
You
it
get to
is.
deal with the public.
Yes.
Although I'm sure there's some stories that aren't so fun dealing with the public, but we'll leave that for another day. And then Emma, you were at Fredericksburg. You said you're a sophomore?
Yes,
So was this your first year?
this was. So I was just an intern this summer. So instead of wearing the park ranger uniform, I was wearing a green polo, khakis, and then a baseball cap.
One says volunteer or something
Yes,
like that?
instead of intern, volunteer.
Yeah. Very embarrassing, isn't it? No,
Still
of
get
course.
to wear like park sign and everything.
Yeah, no, you're still part of the team. So what did you do?
So I did a lot of things similar to Erica. I would work at the visitors table since the visitors center was closed for most of the summer. This is at the Fredericksburg battlefield. We got to set up a table outside and just greet visitors, kind of give them a lay of the land, give a brief context. We also gave map talks in case they were on a crunch for time or just wanted a quick overview. And then towards the middle of the summer until the end, I was giving guided tours. And then I also worked at Chatham Manor, which was a little bit different since for most of the summer, the building was actually closed. It didn't open up until the last 2 weeks I worked there.
Right.
So I mainly just researched the different owners of the house.
No, that's cool.
Yes.
And did you find anything interesting in that research?
I did.
What?
So I focused on one of the owners in particular of the 20th century, and he was quite the criminal.
Really?
He embezzled money from the bank he worked at and the Masonic Lodge that gave George Washington his masonry. And then he was a part of another criminal activity I wasn't able to find much information on.
Really?
And then he got arrested, went to penitentiary, then was pardoned by the President Wilson, fled to New Jersey afterwards, and then was to pursue his private passion of Jersey cow breeding. And then those words were used in one of the newspaper articles specifically. And then he was forced to return to Virginia because he never paid the money to the Masonic Lodge that he embezzled, the 14 grand.
Wow. 14 grand was a lot of money back then.
And it was like 34 grand, I think, from the bank.
Huh.
So.
Wow, and he lived there at Chatham. So when did Chatham become Park Service property then?
1975.
Okay. Okay, so not too long ago.
Yeah.
Who owned it? Was it a
Pratt, John Lee Pratt.
Was he a car executive? Yeah, it's Pratt. Was he a car executive?
I'm trying to think. Was he? He did a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think he was on the board of GM.
GM. That's
Okay.
Yeah.
Had something to do with cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say of all the sites of Fredericksburg, or maybe for the entire park, Chatham is often overlooked.
Yeah.
Especially challenging because of some construction they're always doing in Fredericksburg. But you can't find a better place to talk about the opening of the Fredericksburg campaign. So
Sure.
I don't know if you maybe didn't have really much of a chance to do that, Emma, which is too bad.
Yeah. Did I haven't been to Fredericksburg, I think, in like 10 years or so. And last time I was down there, I was kind of appalled at how close people's backyards are to the wall there on Marie's Heights. I'm assuming they haven't gone away, right? They're still there. It's still like that. That's terrible. Do you know of any, does the Park Service want to eventually encroach on that property? But go ahead.
They won't use the word encroach. But
take back.
So the park, when it was first established, basically just bought the Confederate line, and so a lot of the land that the United States Army was on isn't technically owned by the park. And so, like you said, there's the backyards of the houses.
Yeah.
They're just right up to the sunken road almost. And the park, I believe, owns a couple of houses, and they're just waiting on one more. And over time, probably not even in my lifetime, that hopefully they'll expand the battlefield a bit more.
That's good. That's good.
The restoration of the sunken lane, though, is pretty amazing. And of course, I date them considerably, as we've already established. But so I went from Appomattox to Fredericksburg, and when I was at the sunken lane, which that would have been starting in 1989, the sunken lane was still open to car traffic. So as you're trying to give tours, you can only imagine people flying down that road. It was a miracle someone didn't get hit. I was always surprised by that. And so now, if you go to Fredericksburg, they've closed it off. They've done a historic rehabilitation. They have excellent interpretive markers. So even though it certainly is frustrating because the attack ground is for the Federals is covered, it's still there's something more to see than what we've had, and what I ever thought was even possible.
Yeah,
and they'll expand that a little bit more.
I mean, it's just like here, you got to do a little bit at a time. You don't have the money to do it all, and it's just impossible to do it all. But at least they're looking that way, which I'm glad to hear because that was sad.
You mind if I throw him a question here?
Go ahead. No, yeah. Free for all. Everybody can speak. You don't have to.
Yeah. So the challenges of Fredericksburg, they're enormous. To get people to understand that Emma and I have a little bit of a disagreement here. Emma, how many Union soldiers killed and wounded?
8,000.
She started.
8,000.
I thought it was 12,000.
No, not well. Maybe total.
Well, and the sunken road itself is about 8,000. Yes.
Yeah. I said 10, and she corrected me in class.
She said 8.
She said she started with 6, and she's now up to 8.
That's not true.
Why do you say 8? Why does he say 10?
I'm wrong.
When I was at the park this summer, those were the numbers that we were given.
Updated
numbers.
But you haven't verified that yourself.
Well, that's what the park staff told me.
Where's he getting 10 from?
His time in 1989.
She said that was very diplomatic. I'm very impressed.
I love that answer. That's good. Numbers do change.
They do change, but I'm really curious. How did you all make that place, that tour, make it evocative for visitors? That's one part of the question. And I'm also interested in how you made that ground significant, because it's so shocking what occurred there. You get so obsessed with, oh my God, Burnside, what were you thinking about? How do you get people to think deeper about what happened on December 13th there?
So with my tours, what I like to do was the first half was kind of context and then talking about the fighting that happened at the Sunken Road and then Prospect Hill. But my second half of the tour would focus more on memory, so the memory of the war and the battle, the legacy and the significance. So that brings the importance to the visitors and helping them understand why should we know this, why should we understand this event, and just to help give more of a sense of like the lay of the land. I know Erica used to do this too. We'd bring pictures of what the battlefield looked like closer to its time in 1863 and then 1862, my bad. I think I would have known that.
Well, you're in 1863 country now.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly.
And now
Gettysburg.
your number claims. Everyone's suspicious now. You've lost your credibility. We're back to 10,000
Exactly.
folks.
What the hell do you know?
Yeah, right.
And so I guess by talking about the legacy and the memory, sometimes depending on the tour and how much time I had or just the interest of the visitors, the challenge of what the park looks like today with that backyards going right up to the Sunken Road almost, that provides more of an opportunity to have a wider scope of interpretation to bring the relevance into like the 20th century, not just the 18th century. So that was a challenge that I enjoyed taking on, and I think it gave more, like I said, a broader interpretation.
And how did you accepted the challenge, and what did you do? How did you do it?
So I originally, Dr. Carmichael, like that I'm using this word, used microhistory, and I would talk about a specific individual to kind of introduce the story. So I'd talk about Martha Stevens, who was able to shape her own memory and her, like how society viewed her prior to the war. She was kind of an outcast. She wasn't your typical 19th century female, owned a saloon, owned property in her own name, and she cussed, smoked a pipe, things like that.
My kind of gal.
And then it wasn't until after the war she claimed, we haven't found much evidence that this claim is true, that she was there on the battlefield the day of the fighting and was helping Confederate soldiers, bringing them into her house, helping the wounded, things like that. And so by telling that story, she became a hero. The UDC actually put up a monument to her that's on the battlefield today. So I used her story and brought it to a broader context of saying, well, this individual shaped how the war, how she was remembered and her legacy, and that can be said as the Civil War as a whole and the Battle of Fredericksburg as a whole. And so then that brought into, that would take into effect some of why the park looks the way it does today. Like I said earlier, the Confederate line was the property that was first bought. So the legacy of the war and kind of more of the lost cause, which was a challenge talking about with some visitors. You kind of have to understand your audience before giving that tour and how much depth you're going to go into. But by talking about Martha Stevens and the shaping the legacy of the war, then that kind of connects to why the park looks the way it does today, what land was considered important when it was first established, and things like that.
You mentioned the lost cause, and I put this to all of you guys. Do you encounter a lot of that when you deal with the public, where they're very married to the lost cause narrative they've learned, and you're telling them something maybe that flies in the face of that? Like, how do you handle that? And
Go ahead, Erica.
Go ahead. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, we do encounter a lot of those visitors, but like a good tactic to use is to find common ground and like see where they're at and like
give me an example, can you?
So like someone will say like slavery wasn't the cause of the war, it wasn't fought over slavery. So then you kind of want to ask like questions like, okay, like, you know, what makes you think that it wasn't like, what do you think it was over? And then you just kind of try to find like some common ground and keep asking like questions like, where are you coming from, and then try to just
you try to get them to answer the question themselves that it was slavery. Like you kind of like walk them through a logical progression to.
You kind of show them like, you kind of, you know, see like if they're willing to like show them that first of all like you're willing to listen to them and like that, you know, you're going to give them respect and everything, and see if they're going to willing to listen to you and engage in more discussion, and like hear out your side of why slavery was played a major role in the Civil War, and so you just kind of see how they respond to that, how different visitors, and many visitors are like pretty responsive and are interested in what you have to say. So.
And I just would add, I think that and Dan didn't have a chance to do this, but I'd like to ask him about the lost cause. But an interpreter's job is not to convince someone of another opinion. Especially it's not to tell somebody that they're wrong. But it is to create a conversation, and I think Erica said it nicely there, with the hope that that person walks away. You'll never know, but maybe thinking about it differently.
Okay.
And, I think that the conversation is a critical part. And there's, at least in my experience, that the give and take during the question and answer period is some of the most meaningful teaching that I've ever done. And it's the kind of teaching where, I'm not lecturing at somebody.
Yeah, right.
Which is hard for me because, I love to talk at people. It's tough. But I couldn't wear my scarf in the park, so that sense of authority is just gone. It's done, right? I became a real person.
Yeah, exactly. When you don't have that scarf on, you're just kind of like hanging out Pete.
That's right.
You wear like a soccer shirt.
Right. I'm just, Dan, were there in the collections at Petersburg, were there items there that could be associated with the lost cause or over some time period have been, in a sense, interpreted in that way?
Oh,
Good
absolutely.
Question.
So, as you know, or maybe don't know, Petersburg was the site of the Battle of the Crater, the infamous battle where Colonel Pleasants detonated 8,000 pounds of black powder under the Confederate trench line at early morning, and a lot of the effects of that can be seen in the artifacts that we've excavated from the area, and they're almost memorialized as a way to. I mean, because obviously the men who died there died in horrific and brutal ways, but
Sure.
A lot of, especially the Confederate items there, are preserved simply to show the extent that the Union went to damage them and how much force we put in, and we're still unable to dislodge them on that day. Now, that was for a multitude of reasons, but for a very... I wouldn't say a very long time, but for definitely during the Lost Cause era, these items were used as a way to almost show Confederate martyrism, if you will,
Sure.
and strength and courage.
Right.
Can I have a follow-up to that?
Of course.
So, Dan, is there anything in the collection that's connected to the United States Colored Troops, the USCT, black soldiers, which played a prominent role at the crater? Anything in the collections related to them?
I can't think of too many things specifically off the top of my head, but yes, absolutely there is.
A few things.
Yes.
But it's pretty small.
In
terms of numbers,
Yes,
which doesn't surprise me. But again, I think it's a good thing for everyone to remind ourselves of, right, that the process of collecting, whether it be in an archive or whether it be for a museum collection, that what is deemed to be historical, what's deemed to be significant, that sets up these narratives. So when we are shocked at the story of African Americans, which I want to quickly say that story at Petersburg has been told for some time. His boss, Emmanuel Dabney, who has done some outstanding work there as well. So I don't want to create the impression here, particularly for the Park Service. I can't stress it enough. The Park Service has not been sitting back on its haunches while everyone else is talking about issues of race. They've been doing it for a long time.
Sure.
But sometimes the collection, in a sense, doesn't cooperate, and that appears to be that it might be partially true.
And I would say not even in the sense that the collection doesn't cooperate. I'd say that the collection cooperates very well. The artifacts that we have, the broken muskets, the bent barrels, the debris that we found, it tells a story of what happened that day, which was a story that started with 8,000 pounds of black powder being detonated underground. And it's the fault of people and how they want to interpret these artifacts to support whatever ideology they support. But in no way do these artifacts directly. They are simply the product of what happened that day. And
sure. Yeah, it's right. It's the spin that you're putting on them, right?
Yes,
what
absolutely.
you're saying. Yeah, I got you.
How you interpret it. And I would say one more thing about this is
pull that mic to you there, Pete.
I'm so sorry.
That's
or
right.
I'll just get.
You can pull it to you.
I'll pull it to me.
Yeah.
There we go.
Get comfortable.
I'm very comfortable. And that is what happened to the USCT troops there, the black soldiers there. And, people are saying, oh, they cried. Remember Fort Pillow? They yelled out no quarter. If you want to put that case forward, that still does not take away from the fact that we're talking about hundreds, if not thousands, were murdered in cold blood.
Yeah.
And again, how does a physical collection, how does it tell that story? And it just should remind us all of how imperfect our sources are, and whether it's material culture, whether it's written sources as well. Man, there's stuff that's very, very difficult to get to, and that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep trying. But it's just a reminder to us that there aren't just a few pieces of evidence out there that tell the truth.
Right.
You got to mix them all together and then acknowledge there's a lot of stuff missing in action.
Yeah, somebody asked me once, like, how long do you think you could do a podcast about one battle? And I was like, there's so much to learn. Like, I could literally spend the rest of my life doing this and probably not even get close to doing it all. And that idea of like we know it all already, like what more can you learn, is a very dangerous mindset to have, because you can learn more, and you have to sometimes undo what the previous generations have done and the way they've interpreted history for their own purposes, and it's very interesting. It's all very
messy, right? And that's
very messy. Yes. That's why I like it that you guys and the Park Service people, you guys sift through it all, and then I just talk to you.
Well, he's being humble here, and so
it's a lot easier.
But what you do, what you do is a form of public history, and it's so incredibly important, right?
Yeah, but I wouldn't call myself a historian.
Well, you know what? That's a mistake, because you are.
No.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm a
Let me
host.
ask you something. Yeah, but you're not just, you're not vacuous. You read about the battle, do you not?
I do.
Okay, there you go. Have you read primary sources about the battle? There's some diaries.
I have.
All right, and then do you think and interpret about that?
I write about it.
You're one of us. You're welcome to the team.
All right.
Right.
Yay.
Yes, you've made it.
All right.
No,
Well,
I mean,
I never would use that term.
But I would just say that's how I see my audiences. It's even how I see my students, man. We are all colleagues in this, and we obviously bring different levels of knowledge and approach, but that's the beautiful thing about what we do in public history, man. We are partners in crime, so to speak.
Sure.
And again, I think we can all acknowledge that we can probably learn from each other in different ways, right?
Well, I could certainly learn from you. I don't know what you can learn from me. You could probably learn a lot of what not to do from me. Okay, so each one of you, I want to go through each one of you. We'll start with Emma this time. What did you learn about the life of a Park Service employee that maybe you hadn't anticipated before you started?
Well, I think just in general, the public is very unpredictable. And so I knew that going into it, but I don't think I fully understood what that meant, what that was going to be like on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Every day was interesting. There was always an interaction that you didn't expect. And I think as a working for the Park Service, that ended up being a great opportunity in the end, because that teaches you such valuable skills, that teaches you to be adaptable, to be flexible, to have good communication skills, make sure a visitor feels respected, but at the same time when they cross the line, they know when they cross the line. I think that was one of the...
Wait. How do you tell them that?
Well, just being like forceful at the same time. So a lot of times...
Like you yell at them?
Not yell at them, but like make sure you're stern and to the point. Like a lot of times, sometimes working for the Park Service, obviously you're a representative of the federal government. You can't give your political opinion. Sometimes, especially with Civil War history, people tend to like to bring politics into it, especially with modern day. And so just simply being like, I'm a representative of the federal government, I can't talk about politics. Simple, forceful way to make sure like a visitor knows that they can't cross that line with you. And then you can go back to talking about the battle or whatever it may be, and it usually ends up being a great interaction with the visitor. So I think that's like an invaluable skill that is beneficial in public history, just in general in life going forward.
Because some people try to just knock you off track, like they just want to be jerks, and so you have to learn how to avoid that and not insult them at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But overwhelmingly, the visitor interactions are like more than great.
Sure.
I absolutely loved like 99% of them, especially when visitors, you see that like curiosity like being sparked in them, and then they really get interested in wanting to know more, asking more questions, or even extend their stay so they get to explore the battlefield even more. Like that ends up being some of the most rewarding moments.
And at Fredericksburg, do the visitors there, and both of you can answer this if you want, do the visitors there have a hard time finding the visitor center while they're in the visitor center complex? Like here at Gettysburg? No?
Well, sometimes people will go to the city visitor center, or they'll go
Oh.
to Chatham because Chatham is the park headquarters.
Ah,
So sometimes I'd be
okay.
at Chatham, and they'd be like, "We're looking for the like Battlefield Visitor Center," and but they pulled in there because
Right.
that's like what came up. Or if they go to the visitor center, so sometimes
Okay.
that would be confusing.
So I don't feel so alone. I don't feel so alone now here in the shed with people asking me where the visitor center is. Okay, how about you? What was it that you learned about the life of a Park Service employee that you didn't perhaps anticipate?
I guess I would agree like with what Emma said, but I would also say like how many different divisions there are within the Park Service. So what I did this past summer was I worked with interpretation staff, but I also worked with cultural resource management. So I did different projects with the cemetery and park road tablet signs, and I got to work like with like the museum, like with the like archivist, like the curator. I got to work with different people in like the maintenance division and cultural resources interpretation. So, and like everyone at Fredericksburg was like so friendly, and that's what made it like a really good place to work. Like every single person was just so friendly. So that was a unexpected. Like,
What's cultural resource management? Real quickly, tell them
so
that.
cultural resource management is basically about protecting and preserving and documenting like the natural resources, different natural aspects of like the landscape and historic structures and things like that, and like documenting them, making reports, so that in the future those resources will continue to be protected.
And Erica, real quickly, so give them one more, if you don't mind. Tell them about the bookstore in the bathroom and what Eric did there, so people get a sense of the layers of history. That's what cultural resource is about. It's not just Civil War; it's about the history that's been there. So she can tell about this.
So my one supervisor, the cultural resource specialist, he was like, we're going to meet with two people and to like talk about like how we're going to preserve like the bathroom in the visitor center because they're historic bathrooms, and I thought that was a little bit kind of funny, but they are, because the visitor center is built in 1930, and those were at the time the park was still like under segregation, so the bathrooms in the visitor center were for the white visitors only, and they're very like more fancy bathrooms, and they have like marble in them and everything. So when they go to when they're talking about like preserving that, the restrooms for African Americans were outside the visitor center in what is now the bookstore area, which used to be like a garage area, I believe. So you get into that aspect of it as well, but then in the bathroom itself, like you have to debate, what are we going to replace here? Because if you keep replacing different things,
gone.
the original
Yeah.
part of it disappears. So
That's what's so
another part of
interesting,
it.
though, about these parks is because you have layers of history. There's not just the reason why it's become a park, but also everything that's happened after it. Like one of my favorite things about here at Gettysburg is finding where an old road was, an old park road. I don't know if you've seen these, but I know, yeah, and like that. I love that, and I'm like, wait, that looks like a roadbed, and then I find out, oh my God, there was a road there, and then
so that
stupid stuff I love.
That was actually another one of my projects. Was I got to know like where the different park roads used to be, and across the park in Fredericksburg, because I was trying to document these park signs that had been there since like the 1930s, and trying to locate where they used to be in the park. So I had to look at all these older park maps and photographs to see where the roads used to be, because they've stayed the same for the most part, but they have changed.
Yeah, there's like a few that are slightly different. Can you, if you look at the ground now, can you see where they used to be?
Yeah, if you go to Spotsylvania Courthouse Battlefield by the Bloody Angle, you can kind of see a little bit more of a gravel kind of path, and there used to be, as my understanding, you could kind of drive by the Bloody Angle. There used to be a path there.
Absolutely.
So
Same with our angle here. You used to be able to loop right through there. Do you know? Have you seen the ones here at Gettysburg?
I don't know as much about here at Gettysburg.
Do you get to explore Gettysburg? Going to Gettysburg College? Do you guys get to go around the battlefield often? You do?
Yeah.
I mean, on your own?
Yeah, we do. We actually do a lot. I know the first year we don't usually have cars, but me and my friends used to even take the effort to walk everywhere.
I mean,
because
you're literally on the battlefield.
Yeah, so
you don't have to go far.
Yeah, we would definitely do that. We'd go a lot out to the Peace Light because that's close to campus, and we've also gone into town and like Cemetery Hill and the National Cemetery, things like that. So there's an active interest in campus.
I'm glad to hear that. That's great. And Joey. I'm Joey. Danny, I meant to say. Excuse me. How about you? What was the thing that you learned about life of a Park Service employee, et cetera, et cetera?
Definitely a degree of frustration that is just going to have to be accepted within their lives. I learned time and time again that you can do your job totally to the T, even go above and beyond, but all it takes is one person in Washington or elsewhere along the way to misfile one piece of paper, one report, one this, one that, and all of a sudden your project that you've been planning for the past 2 years is done. It's gone.
Done. Yeah.
So definitely that there is a certain amount of delicate bureaucracy that if you wish to pursue this career, you need to be able to be patient and be strong against. But also you just have to work and learn how to be stubborn and make your voice be heard and try to make sure that the ideas you think are best are supported and people know that.
That's interesting.
I just want to say quickly, that's one of the great challenges of the Park Service, that you have interpreters / historians. That's not their grade. Their grade is interpreter or park ranger. That's what they are, park rangers. As you move up in your positions, right? So if you go from a GS7, you go up to a GS12. The higher you go up, usually in the Park Service, the farther you get away from the resource, the farther you get away from the very thing that you love.
Yeah, the job changes.
So it's tough, right? Because I think that there are a lot, and I'm not going to name names, they're friends of mine, and of course I respect the career choices they made. They loved history. They wanted to be a practicing historian. But the fact is that there's a dearth of really good leadership that can navigate that bureaucracy. So my mentor / supervisor was Bob Crick, and he was at Fredericksburg. And man, that guy was a great historian, and he was head of chief of Interp. It was incredible what he could do. But what he did better than anyone that I ever saw was he could navigate that bureaucracy, and he could do it and do it brilliantly. So that's what you need in the Park Service. That's what I tell our students. Yeah, you got to be a good historian. But you also need to do these other job skills. It's really important, right? You got to be able to do it all.
I couldn't do that. I mean, I take my hat off to you guys for even trying, because I couldn't put up with that stuff. Like, I just can't. Right. I hated corporate. Like, I hate the whole thing.
Yeah, no, the paperwork is all consuming.
Yeah.
I want to say something real quickly before, because I don't know where we're headed with this. And I appreciate all the three of them have done, as well as their peers, right? To take time during the summer when it's not lucrative, but they're committed and devoted, and I appreciate also that they focus on the positive aspects of it. I think that's important. But I'm going to speak for them now. Okay. And that's especially for the women. And the thing that's disturbing trend that I've seen is that women historians in the Park Service, that visitors don't respect them in two ways. One, they don't usually go to them for the historical question. If there's a guy and a woman, they go to the guy. Yeah. But more importantly, and my wife, who worked in the Park Service for a while, she told me some horror stories. That these guys think that they're being funny, right? And like, for example, a guy said to my wife, "I love a woman in a uniform." Now, you know what? That's not appropriate in that workplace. You don't know that person. And you think about doing this with a young person who's just started working. And so, we've come so far. Like, when I was a seasonal, you barely find any women who did seasonal work or who were interns. Right. And now the field of public history is mostly women. I don't know what the gender...
is it mostly women?
In the field of public history, it's mostly women. And for Pohankas, I'd say, it's hard to know. I think it's about almost evenly split.
See, but this is great, though, because, I mean, most of our audience is men. Right. But we try to do whatever we can to make it more welcoming to a female audience. So we have, like, on another show that we do, we have a female co-host, and we try to cover civilian things because they tend to be more interested in that and everything. But it's hard.
It's hard. And I'll just say, come on, I see you both looking at each other. So how'd you feel about that? Will you be more interested in their show if they do civilian stuff? What do you think? Come on, say what you think. I know
Well,
what you're thinking.
we're-
And also our T-shirts, they come in pink too.
I'm not a fan of the color pink.
No, I just said that because I know the women got very angry when I made shirts in pink.
I think one of the challenges this summer definitely was I've been told blatantly women don't know military history, and I think that could be farther
Well,
from
that's
the
not what
truth.
we're saying.
Well,
I
no,
know,
of course,
but what I'm
yeah.
saying is like, yes, I am interested. I'm interested in like all the history, not just the battle, but how does that affect civilians? But I mean, there is like a stereotype that comes with military history, being interested in that, and like I've always grown up not shying away from what people think some females wouldn't necessarily be into or can handle learning, whether it's like the gory effects of battle, the horrific sights that you can see and things like that. And I think that there are women out there that aren't afraid of that and would be very interested in learning more of that military history, whether it's the fighting, the weaponry, things like that, the technology, as well as the civilian experience, because you can't really separate it. There's culture that is involved
Right.
in battle and in wars, and it's all encompassing of like every like aspect of life. It's not, you can't really be like, well, one group's going to be more interested in civilians, one group's going to be more interested in fighting. It's together.
Yeah,
like-
and that's the thing. When I was younger, I couldn't care less about the civilian stuff. I couldn't care less about the political stuff. I just wanted the explosions and the broken bodies. That's what I wanted. And when I moved back down here 3 years ago to start doing this, I realized I'm going to have to learn about the civilians. And I was like, and I started reading because I had to learn about it to do the shows. And then I realized it's kind of interesting. And you're right. You can't have one without the other. The civilians help the soldiers change the civilians' lives by coming here and fighting. And, so you have to tell that story. It's part of the story. So it is fascinating. But, yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that you are interested in the military aspect of it, because without the military, we wouldn't care about the civilians, because the war was going on, and that's why we care about the civilians, right? That was the big, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would.
Would you
add on-
care about the civilians in 1863 if the Civil War hadn't been occurring?
I mean,
No. The answer is no.
but okay, but.
But I wouldn't care. Well, go ahead. Eric.
No,
I
go
was
ahead,
just gonna
answer
say, adding on to Emma, we actually had a lot of women at Fredericksburg doing living history. So I would be representing the 114th Pennsylvania Zoo Ops, either as a soldier or as a woman who was a vivandière, so she carried water and sold like supplies to the soldiers. French Marie Tepe. So I'd either talk about either one of their roles, and then Emma would usually would talk about Martha Stevens and would represent like her. We're all talking about them in the third person, not first person interpretation.
Okay, so you're not pretending that
We're not
you're
pretending
okay.
that we are actually them. And then another ranger would also dress as Union Cavalry. And then we had another intern who she would also be a Union infantry soldier. And so we would talk about like all the different ways that women could get involved in the war. So we'd talk about, like nursing, Martha Stevens, soldiering, getting in as a soldier, that kind of thing.
Now, why, when she brought that up, did you start laughing? What did that remind you of?
Which part did I laugh at?
When she said Martha Stevens,
Oh.
you started laughing.
Yes, it was fun to dress as portray Martha Stevens in the like female civilian experience, I guess, more in the battle, and it's good memories from that.
Okay.
Good challenges.
So it was just a laugh because you
Yes.
had fun.
But I
Okay.
think, and then to bring Dan in here, but I think what they're both saying here is that one shouldn't give primacy to one over the other. Yeah, the military events are absolutely decisive, but the military events they wouldn't mean anything. In fact, you wouldn't even have armies. They are civilian soldiers, and
Sure.
and they never leave that connection to their household. So, the idea that it's one or the other, or one's more important than the other, I think it misses what they're both saying. That there's an integration of the two. That's what
Sure.
we should be always seeking. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw something else out here. You want to bring more women into the conversation? I'm not speaking about your show. Or conversations that have occurred because of your show. But let's, Dan maybe can speak to this. I've seen time and time again, men, they like to be loud, and they often associate loudness with competency and intelligence. And so, you want to bring more women into the conversation. A lot of men need to just kind of sit back.
Soften.
Like me, look how I'm dominating right now. I need to shut the hell up and let them keep talking. I think that's the main problem. It's not topic and interest. Hell, a woman could be interested in military history like in being interested in civilian stuff. They just need an environment where men need to learn to say, hey, man, come on, let's create a conversation. I got a great class this semester, man. It's not the military history class I'm talking about. It's my CWS 205. A great class. It has more questions I've ever had before. I've got a few guys in there, and we did a battlefield tour with them. And Emma, we got into a sports debate, and Emma was kicking their rear ends. She knows hockey really well, and the guys could not handle it. And I finally stepped in and I said, you're embarrassing yourself, guys. She knows more. She's winning the war here.
Yeah.
So you probably just want to sit in your seat and just concede. But that happened on the bus. But I've seen in the classroom, they're louder. And, I've had a lot of talks with the women.
Well, you'll never
class.
get them to be quieter. You got to get the girls to be louder.
Well, you got to get the men. You got to remind the men, hey, you know what, man? There is a way that you can carry yourself that's a little bit more open to creating opportunities for people to speak. Your goal should be not just to get your opinion out there. Your goal should be, as they said, what we do in good interpretation is you talk to those visitors, you get them talking, right, and hope some good things come out of it. That's right.
Yeah, I learned that lesson after life beat me up for about 20 years, and you're right. Like, you do need to let other people,
I'm just curious
have
about
the word.
The word, Dan. And again, you can't speak to the dynamics of Petersburg because you didn't do interpretation. But I'm just curious. You've been in public history classes and history classes. What do you see as sort of the dynamics, the gender dynamics of that? If you've thought about it at all.
I definitely think that does play I think you pretty much hit it nail on the head. That typically I see guys get a lot more. I don't want to say more passionate, but the way that they get passionate about history definitely closes the conversation off and turns it into just a shouting match, whereas so I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with being loud and voicing your opinion as long as you're doing it in a way that is constructive and you're not just simply using volume and aggression to say I'm right and you're wrong. You maybe it's because no one's listening and you need to be loud sometimes, but for the sake of a class form or whatever, I definitely I see that, and I can understand why that would make it a very uninviting field and discussion that for women to join. Yeah,
and also don't wait until someone stops speaking before you speak, but wait until they've actually made their point before you speak. Because some people just wait for someone to take a breath and they go, yeah, blah, 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 and then they jump right in.
Right.
That's not fun. It's not fun.
No, look how what you do, man. That's just, you create
I was
conversation. This is what you do.
I was going to say what everybody
about.
should do. What you should do. See, this is what colleges should do: is they should require their students to do a semester of their own podcast and have guests on and conduct conversation like this. And I'll tell you something: it's not easy. It's not easy to do, and it's not easy. Like when someone's talking and you literally zoned out because you're hungry and you're thinking of a burger or something like that, and then someone's done and they look to you for the next question and you don't have anything written down because you like to wing it. You're like, God damn it, what the hell do I ask now? And you go, and it's just embarrassing. But it's good practice. You got to learn how to do it because it helps you in life. You go to a Thanksgiving dinner with your family and you know how to conduct a conversation with a group of people because you've done a semester of a podcast. That's what you should do.
I think that's something we should think about seriously.
Especially if a lot of these students are looking to get into public history, be public.
One more way to reach. I mean, we do it on a wide variety of fronts, and we have at CWI we have 3 excellent people. I have Heather Miller, Jill Titus, and I have Ashley Lusky, and they do wonderful things for our students. It's I've taught at a number of schools. This is number 4 for me. I wasn't fired from the other schools. I left on my own accord.
Okay, congratulations.
The students here, man, they're really impressive. I mean, you could tell, look at this. They come with knowledge. They come with passion. They went out there. I mean, I miss teaching graduate students. There's no doubt about that. But this is pretty damn good.
But with undergrads like these, who needs grad students? I got to tell you, seriously, I'm impressed with you guys. I've been very hopeless for the future of the world, looking at what you see online, on television of people your age. I'm like, my God, we're doomed. But I have to tell you, after talking to the three of you guys, I'm very impressed. I am very hopeful now that if there's three of you here, there's got to be more of you out there like you guys. And you guys are the ones that I think are going to help us from going into the abyss. And so that
You're right.
that's great.
Again, I bet many of your followers, listeners, viewers, that they remember
Apostles.
Apostles, I like that. It's even better. They knew Brian Pohanka or knew of his work, right? And so I knew Brian. I didn't know him well, but man, they're following within that tradition. And so you think about year in and year out, we're placing 25 to 30 students. I can't do the math, but we're certainly in a few hundred Pohankas over the years. Of those, many have gone on for permanent positions in the Park Service and other jobs as well. So what you say is so important. I'm so weary of a press on the left and the right. They create caricatures because that's what sells, and they want to do it. And this doesn't sell, right? Because these are thoughtful, moderate people. And, it's until the American people wake up, which, it's
slowly happening.
Maybe, if they have to recognize that there's faults on both sides when it comes to the mainstream media, both sides. They need to stop with the conspiracies and all that craziness. And they need to just remind themselves that, day-to-day life, I suspect most of the people you encounter every day are good, decent people and try to do the right thing. I see that. So if people want to focus on the laggards as college students, I guess I could do that. Certainly there are a few, but I think I'd rather focus on them.
Yeah, I agree. Focus on what will actually work and become something.
They matter.
And you guys,
They matter.
Well, they do. Absolutely. Senior?
Yes.
Erica, sophomore Emma, sophomore Dan.
Yes, sir.
Okay, guys, thank you very much for doing this. I know you have classes to get to and everything or something. Parties probably, right? Let's be honest. But thank you very much for doing it. I'm very impressed with you. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for doing this, Pete.
No, seriously, we really appreciate it. Gettysburg College, CWI, the more we can partner, the happier I am.
I'd love to do this.
I really appreciate it.
And even though this is for our going to go on our subscription feed, I'm going to bump it up. Usually I wait 6 months till I release one to the public. So I'm going to do this like in 3 months. I'm going to put this out for everybody so that they can see more about this and what you guys have to offer.
Great.
So thank you very much for doing this, guys. And thank you all. Oh, what?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes, of course. No problem. And thank you, everybody, for watching or listening. All right. That is it. Well done.
So can we get a picture of the five of you?
Sure. Why don't we do...
Can we do it outside or in here? It's kind of cool if it's in here.
In here, yeah. Why don't you guys... Let's see.
Thanks, yeah. I saw the cord there. I didn't want to